Hi there and welcome to my 11th tutorial on Java, and in this tutorial I'm going to talk about functions. The tutorial will cover how to create function. Also, I will show you how to pass and receive values from the function and to the function, and pretty much basic stuff about functions, how to use it and so on. And from the beginning of your tutorials, when you learned first program and stuff like this, you used one function, which is main function, and this function is a bit special. That is the main function is executed all the time. It's the first function to be executed, and it's always executed. When you create your new function, for example, and this function will not be executed until it's called. So if we don't call the function, which we create besides the main, the function will not be executed, and the program will simply omit it or will not see it. So the call statement is crucial as well. And what to create your function? The function looks like this pretty much. You have a scope specifier, which is public or private, and then there's the static, which basically works throughout the program for the lifespan of the program. Then we have the type of the function, like void or integer or string. I will talk about the void function later on, how this works. Then we have the name of the function, which is just simple name, and beside main we already have main. And then we have arguments. We can add arguments in the brackets. We don't have to, but we can. And then we open simply and close curly bracket and add our action between. So this is basically how you did this throughout your programs from the beginning. You had the main function, and between this between those two curly brackets, you simply added your statements like if statement, loops, arrays, and variables and stuff like this. So everything was contained within a function. This one was main, but we'll create new functions today and use them. So to create a function, we pretty much use the same construct. And to create the function, we also have to place it in a specific place. For example, in the public class, we cannot place our function, we cannot create our function in the main because it's already a function. So we have to create it outside, for example here or here. If you, when you learn how to create classes in the future, you'll be able to create methods or functions, called methods as well, in those classes. But now we have only public class, which is this one, so we can create functions in this class only for now. So to create a function, we just go outside of our main and simply write public, for example, and then static, and we specify the name, the type and the name. So for example, let's use a void type and some kind of name, for example, here's function. You don't have to add anything in those brackets for now, and that's how your function will look like, the new function. So that's how you construct your function. Now, and the public function will be available throughout this class, and probably other classes as well should be available because it's public. And there's a private function as well, which will be available only for this class. So public and private scopes. And void, as I mentioned previously, I will talk about the void now. The void function is simply a function which has no type. So its type is no type, basically. It's empty type. And the void function doesn't return any values. As you can see here, for example, we use void function as a main, and it doesn't have a return statement. But in here, if you declare, for example, an integer type function, we have to return a value which is of integer type, as well as a string. We also have to return the value which is of string type, and so on with every type of primitive, which is a simply type of variable size out, and we will have to return besides the void. Void doesn't return anything. Now, when you have your function created, you can add some code, for example, and simple printout statement, let's say system.out, and just write something in a red, like for example. Now, if I even run this now, you won't see any display. That is because I haven't called the function yet. So even if I add some code, this code only here will be executed, but this function itself will not be executed, as I don't have the call statement. So to call the function, we simply write the name of the function with the bracket. So we can simply copy this and paste it here. And that's the call statement. You can see that the writing changed a bit. It's italic now, like, as you can see, it's a bit different. And that's the call statement. So it's pretty simple call statement, and it doesn't pass any values. As you can see, the bracket is empty, and the bracket here is empty as well. So it doesn't pass any values. It will simply go into the function, do whatever is in the function, and go out, and then finish the program or move on with the code. So if I run this now, you will see red. Simply red, as this is the only statement I have in my function. Of course, as I said, you can use the function for many different purposes. You can add loops, if statements, arrays, and such. You can pretty much do anything you do in the main. So for example, this is the the basic call statement and basic function. So what you can do also with the functions to get it more, let's say, advanced, it's to pass the values. So for example, you have a variable, integer for example, number, which just equals 10 for example. I just 10 it, and you have this variable. Now if you want to pass this variable, you want to pass this number to this function, I cannot use the number in here. For example, look, number equals 20 for example. That doesn't work. That is because this variable is a private for this function only. So if I want to use this variable in this function, I have to pass it. And to pass it, I have to write this variable in the bracket. So I will just write number. But you will see that this creates an error. That is because I don't have any values in here. I have to create an integer which will get this value. So I have to create an integer which will get this value from the number. So for example, n. Integer n now will be able to get the value from this variable, and I don't have to assign. As you can see, I can assign now. I don't have to assign. I can print out the statement pretty much and just write n, and you will see that the variable will not be 0 or something. It will be 10 because I passed the value. As you can see, it's 10. I just pass the value 10 and print out this value. So that's how the passing works. Now if you want to return the value, that's a bit different. So for example, let's change it. Later on I have to change the type of the function, but I will just change the variable. I will add let's say int number 2, let's say it's equal 20, and I will say n equals n plus number 2. So pretty simple statement. And instead of printing it out, I will simply say return. But before I do this, I have to change the type of the function. Because void doesn't return anything, I have to change it to integer because I want to return integer. So I have to say int, like so, int. Now as you can see, the function is again highlighted as some kind of error. That is because I don't have a return. As you can see, add a return statement. You can do it like this. As you can see, it works perfectly fine. N equals, and this will produce the calculation already, and as well as returning this value which is calculated. Or you can do something like this: return n. So you can do this also on the next line. You don't have to do it on the same line. You don't have to return the calculation. Or simply you calculate first and then return the value. So both ways are pretty much valid. So that's how you can create your function with the return statement. Now the return statement, this one will not work because I have to return some value. So I have to assign some kind of variable to this function for it to receive this return value. So I can say number is equal to, and first function and numbering the bracket. Now number will contain the calculation of those two variables, n and number 2. So if I print out the number now, system.out.print line, let's say, and I will say number, you will see the calculation which was done in here and returned to the number. We'll see the calculation, the value which is calculated. So it's 30. So I simply add 10 to 20 and it's 30. And that's how you can return your values as well as pass them. Of course, if you want to pass more values, it's valid. It's not limited to just one and just one type of value. I mean, it's not limited to integers. You can pass any type of variable. You can also pass, for example, string. So string, for example, n2, let's say. And before I do this, I did this, so I have a place where to store string. I also have to pass the string now. So string, and let's say name equals start, let's say, like so, and I will simply pass it. So now if you the order in here is the same as order in here. So first one has to be integer, then after comma you specify your string. So the string comes next. So the order in here as you have it, so first integer, then after comma you have string, has to be the same order in here. So first has to be a numeric value, which is integer, and then it has to be a string. So name. Now as you can see, this works perfectly fine. And if I add, of course I cannot return the string, but I can do something with it. And so for example, if I want to do something with the string, for example, I don't know, well, n2 is equal to, let's say, change the name and to green, let's say. And if I would like to return this now, if I want to return this n2, I cannot do this because the function is of integer type and I can return only integers. So if I want to return the string, I have to change the type of the function to string. Now this will be wrong because this is integer, so I have to change it as well to n2. So I can return n2. Now of course this one is wrong as well because number is a integer type. So I have to change it to name, for example. And instead of printing number, I print name. So as you can see, it's pretty much the same thing. If you just add more of them, it's simply you have to follow the order in which they are created in here. You can do pretty much anything. You can add if statements as well. So it's not limited to just calculations of variables. You can see output, and that's pretty much how the function works. And as I said, you can use more types, more primitive types of the function. For example, doubles as well, floats, and so on. You can use those. And remember, when you use those types, you have to return the value. If you use void, you don't have to return anything. You just simply do the function goes out. It's simply just this statement here. This statement here will be just created for the call statement instead of name equals, for example, without the return statement, of course. And you will just simply do something and print out something here, and then code will just simply move on to your next statements. And that's pretty much how the function works. And that pretty much concludes the tutorial, actually, because the functionality of those functions, you can create more of them, of course, and that's how they pretty much work. And you can, as I said, add more of those arguments in here. You can also create more functions below here or above and call them. You can also call a function from here. So from the first function you can call another function. You can create a function here, for example, and you can call a function here, for example, a new function here, which will be valid because you call this function in this. Therefore you have to always call one function, one of those. If you have, for example, 2 or 3 functions which you created, you have to call the first one, at least first one, in the main, as it will trigger then the chain, for example, as this one then can call other functions. And that's pretty much it about this tutorial. Visit my webpage and YouTube channel for more tutorials. And if you like my videos, subscribe on the channel, on my videos. And I will see you in my next tutorial. Bye.